Once again, will it be like any other Friday we've had for many weeks, or could it be a little different? Lots of news flow as always to tackle. I'm Prashant. With me, my colleagues Reema and Nigel. Guys, hi, good morning.
Hi, good morning. And we're coming out of a painful Wall Street session. It reminded me of that word pitai. It almost felt like the, Nasdaq ki pitai ho gayi with it. 2.5% fall. But even for the Indian markets, right? The mid-cap index, the small-cap index, the way it came under pressure yesterday was a bit disappointing.
Well, the mood is very, very somber, particularly in the broader markets. You speak to anyone on the street, the mood is somber with regard to the broader markets. As Nazir said, it appears now the Western markets have suddenly made a near-term peak. So that's going to be a bit of an issue. But guys, cheer up. Today's salary day. It's the end of February as well.
It's a Friday.
Yeah, and hopefully India already had a bit of a cold while the world was very, very healthy. So hopefully, from here on, there could be some bit of an outperformance. That's the hope. Let's see how it goes.
No, absolutely. And but the point about the US is important.
Yeah.
And that was making the point yesterday and day before that maybe the top for US tech is in. And let's see if that is the case. And I'm just saying US tech because nothing else matters really. Is as good as saying is a top in for US markets. We don't know. Maybe just a small pullback or something more meaningful. But we are seeing signs that maybe there is a little bit of sort of fear which is starting to set in for the first time after a few years. So let's just quickly take a look at the price action. So equities, sharp correction. The S&P down about 1.6, Nasdaq down about 2.7%. So these are sharp sell-offs that we are looking at. Nvidia, by the way, and yesterday again same point. Stock ended undecided, but we were saying, well, it's never the first day with a name like Nvidia and all the baggage and the history and the price action we've seen. Sometimes the market just waits a day more, conference call, everything in the in, and then the stock reaction comes through. 9% last night down, and that's the number one name in the US, right? The CBOE Wix was up about nearly 11%. We are back above 21 levels. And there was another googly which came. So this is Donald Trump, US president, putting an additional 10% tariff on China on top of the existing tariffs that, of course, already are running. And this will come into effect in March, from next week, basically. The 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico will go into effect, he confirmed, from the 4th of March. That was something which was being talked about. I mean, there was some confusion whether it will be delayed to April, whether it is till March. So he confirmed, well, the Canada and Mexico tariffs are from next week, which is the 4th of March. But the new thing was this 10% tariff on China as well. Now, the thing is whether this will be sort of, monthly increases in tariffs, as some have suggested. Who knows? But for now, we know that starting next week, unless, of course, we hear something from China, and I think we should hear something from China today and over the weekend, because this is just next week. Maybe there is a negotiation of some sort, but this was very clear from President Trump last night. Now, and that essentially what took the market a little off guard in that sense. Dollar index went up as a consequence because of the tariff headline, about 0.9% higher, back above the 107 level. The 10-year yield, small drift up, but the point is it had sold off 15 basis points in the prior two sessions, so not very much at all, 4.27. Data also beat consensus. So durable goods data was better, but you also had the initial jobless claims number, which beat consensus, which isn't exactly, all that great a thing. Oil prices about 2% higher, $74 a barrel is where oil finally is now, settled last night. The other bit, of course, is with regards to whether there will be a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. And Trump confirmed that he will be meeting Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, in the White House today. And that minerals deal where U.S. gets access and the rights to develop Ukrainian rare earth, oil and gas assets in return for some protection or kind of mediation with Russia, which essentially leads to some sort of durable ceasefire. So watch out for headlines there. And of course, here back home, we've got late last night, there was the announcement that we've got a new SEBI chairman. He's a name who is very, very, very familiar in Delhi circles, in Mumbai as well. He was, of course, the finance secretary. He's the finance secretary, but he's also in charge for disinvestments, and that's the man. Mr. Tuhin Kanta Bande will be, of course, here in BKC, the SEBI headquarters, and he will be chairman at SEBI. The tenure is 3 years. He turns 60 in August, but he's been given a tenure of 3 years. So a fresh start at SEBI. And of course, we'll get you more on this one as we go along. So you got a fresh start at the RBI. You got a new person at the RBI. You got a new person at SEBI as well. So we'll discuss this in greater detail. Just to tie in the levels here. So the Nifty, first up, support stands at 22,396, 22,400 essentially, about 150 points away from where we left off. Resistance zone 22,668 to 22,720. Nothing very different. I mean, similar kind of levels I put out yesterday as well, because yesterday the market was flat. And the Bank Nifty needs to close above 48,970 initially. That's the first very, very near-term resistance that we're looking at. And support here stands at 48,130 and 47,844, which is the prior low, the previous low. The GIFT Nifty will come up on your screen, gives you a sense of how we're likely to start. It's down 100 points in reaction to the Wall Street sell-off. I mean, that's the Nifty. But the point is, broader markets have been where the real pain has been, because even as the Nifty was flat yesterday, those indices were down between 1.5% to 1.75%. So I think that's something we should continue to focus on a bit more beyond, of course, just the headline Nifty and Bank Nifty indices. Guys.
Well, so let's just stack up the performance so far this week. In a truncated week, the mid-cap index is down 2.7%, while the frontline indices are down over 1%. But perhaps yesterday, the Nifty staying flat was to do with expiry, and we'll wait and see one day after what happens to the benchmark indices. But look at the way the S&P 500 and Nasdaq, 5% lower from Monday to Thursday for those key US indices. In terms of flows, the DIIs bought 1,700 crore in the cash market, while the FI selling was restricted to 556 crore rupees. Lots of important news flow. Top of mind is, of course, the new SEBI chief that Prashant was talking about, Tuhin Kanta Pandey. SEBI has also mandated the deployments of funds raised via NFOs within 30 days. This will be effective 1st of April. If you don't do that, then there is a penalty or you need to explain. This is to avoid mis-selling. So if you raise money via an NFO, it has to be deployed within 30 days. So watch out for AMCs. There is an MSCI rebalance which comes into effect post-market hours close today. According to IFL, we could see passive inflows of $1.4 billion. The key changes, Hyundai is included in the standard index, Adani Green is excluded, and there is some weight changes in IndusInd Bank, Zomato, Varun Beverages, Mankind Pharma. That list is up for you on your screen. And the Feb auto sales will be out over the weekend, so they should be on your watch list, particularly after Siam lowered the estimates for passenger vehicles in the coming year.
Well, that's right, Rima. A couple of points from what you said. You know, the MSCI rebalance, that will keep the flows looking a little bit skewed in today's trading session. Yesterday was not too bad as well with the FISL number of 500 crores. And the other factor is the Nifty Bank is showing signs that it wants to fight back. Last couple of trading sessions, it's made a higher high as well as the higher low. But February, as we mentioned, well, it hasn't been a good series. And there are 4 big points really that stood out. And that was the reason that we were underperforming. And it appears 2 out of the 4 at least have corrected themselves, because the valuation concerns, well, we're a little better placed in terms of valuations. And the Q3 results were not very, very great. But hopefully Q4 could show some kind of an improvement. That's the hope out there. While the other 2 are not in our hands, that's the FI selling as well as Trump's tariffs. So we'll have to keep an eye out on both those 2 factors, but at least 2 out of the 4 have corrected themselves. Well, moving to the other couple of data points. Everyone's talking about this, right? The record after around 28 years, we have 5 straight months where the Nifty ends in the red. Not a great data point, right? But, you know, that time in 1996, we corrected by close to 26%. This time around, we have corrected by close to 13%. But everyone's been talking about this data point. I don't want to go back so much in time. But since everyone's talking about this losing streak, what happened next? The next 1 month post that in 1996, post that losing streak, we're a little bit higher. 1 year later, we were higher. And 3 years later, we were much higher. Not going to say that it will play out exactly the same this time around, but that is the case, right? If you look at the data point of 1996, then just check out what happened post that as well. The short point is, in the longer term, well, markets do rebound, you know, in the longer term. So just keep an eye out on that factor. Don't get too underwhelmed with regard to that factor. What else are we looking at? How is the Nifty open interest at the start of series? Not too much change, as heavy as what we were at the start of the last series as well. But what about positioning? The FIs, they're as net short as what they were at the start of the last series itself. In percentage terms, they're a little bit lower, you know, at around 85% or thereabouts. What about clients? Well, clients, actually, their long positions are a little bit lower on the index futures if you compare it with what we saw at the start of the last series. So on the long side on index futures, that's a little bit lower. And if you look at the client positioning, even on stock futures, well, they're continuing to remain net long, but those long positions are a little bit lower out there. While the FIs, they are long positioning on stock futures a little bit higher. Keep in mind, there could be hedging as well at play out here. But net, both clients as well as FIs on stock futures, they are net long. Moving to the options data, 2 strikes come up for you on the screen, fairly active in yesterday's trading session, which gives you a near-term range. On the downside, that 22,450 level, well, you don't want that to break on the downside. While on the upside, the 22,750, that's the important mark that you're looking at. Stocks that I'll be looking at, well, Premier Energies, that one, there's a 6-month lock-in post-listing. That comes off today, so some stocks will be available for trading. This has been a bit of an overhang on the stock. We'll have to see how much of it does materialize, because otherwise the longer theme looks good. So today is a test for this particular stock. A lot of people waiting by to see what happens from here on. It's more than double from the IPO price, but it's come off drastically from the top. Net, the March series starts off today, and dare I say, since we have already underperformed, maybe in March the Indian markets could outperform. Just talking about the headline Nifty itself.